even I know that regardless of this guy's size, hey, you can't hold up in the NFL getting hit like this, right? But I will say this. It is interesting that a lot of the narratives So if you watch my channel for any length of time, you know that two things are extremely important to me. The two C's, the big C's, context and clarity. The reason why these are important is because context will allow you to not necessarily have knee-jerk reactions without seeing, I guess, the contents of the situation to find out why they happen. Now, I am the king of knee-jerk reactions, so I don't want to try to, make it like I'm some, just context king, if you will. But I usually do try to make sure that I see things through a little bit before I make the biggest of reactions, if you will. But sometimes the knee-jerk is called for. Clarity, something totally different. Clarity can provide you either an opportunity and a framework to be able to build on, or, in the case of the Carolina Panthers, in a lot of ways, clarity can be provided, and then you do nothing of the sort to try to add to that. Here's an example. I remember when Miles Sanders was signed, right? And he's kind of been the ire of Panther fandom over the last 4 or 5 weeks, really since the season started. Let's just call it that, right? And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, maybe they really are considering drafting Anthony Richardson. And the reason I thought that is because if you go back and watch Eagles film from the previous year, Miles Sanders operated in a lot of space that was created by the threat of Jalen Hurts running the ball. Well, we knew, regardless of RPO or how many times they were in shotgun, there's no way they're going to allow Bryce to go on like controlled runs, right? If the play breaks down, if he sees something and wants to take off, then obviously you get that opportunity. But like, surely they're not going to bring in Bryce to actually run like read option, like where he actually has the option to run the ball. So it really didn't make a lot of sense to me, especially when you saw the downhill attack from the previous season. But sometimes clarity can provide you a framework by which to build from, and other times clarity can be seen by everybody else seemingly, but the people in charge. Which is why I said something on Twitter recently. There was a tweet by Emmanuel Acho where he was detailing Hassan Reddick and the number of sacks he's had over the last 3 seasons or whatever. And my response to that was the laser eyes are dimming these days, right? I think we all know what I mean by that. Here's the one thing to me that should scare you if you're a Carolina Panther fan. It's the obvious. Will they be able to support and build around this, what I believe, franchise quarterback like we hoped that they could? And here's why our pattern of history shows us that, quite honestly, that might not be the case. Here's what I mean. Cam Newton, excellent start to his career. Had a lot of weapons. Lost a couple, Brandon LaFell moved on at one point. Jeremy Shockey retired. So there were many weapons that Cam had that they didn't necessarily do the best to go and retool, right? Brenton Burson, Amani Edwards, shout out to Amani, App State. But, these weren't guys that they brought in, Philly Brown. No disrespect to Philly Brown. Philly Brown made some huge plays for us, and I love his game. But at the same time, it's like, there was never a point when they lost Steve Smith that you've seen Cam Newton have the kind of treatment that, say, Josh Allen has by going out and getting a Stephon Diggs, or, they attempted to do the Joe Burrow thing, but nobody's comparing Kelvin Benjamin to Jamar Chase. So this makes me nervous as a Panther fan for the quarterback, because no matter how good this guy can become, there's certain things that he just will not be able to overcome, right? So that brings me to the highlight video of today. This is obviously the most anticipated channel as far as film watching is concerned. I don't do all 22 stuff, and salute to everybody that does, but I'm not a film expert, and I don't claim to be, but I usually try to watch the guys that I believe that are, and I think JT from the QB school is one of the most excellent expositors of film there is out there, and there's many of them. There's a quarterback school with Kurt Warner or QB, whatever it's called, Confidential or whatever like that. There's a guy named Tim Jenkins that I've seen on the C3 Panthers podcast before. Salute to those guys, but the reason why I don't personally do that is because I want to have a more informed opinion and kind of base my context on that alone, because he can see more than just, what the eye sees, right? He sees it through the quarterback lens because he's been behind center. And just because, and this is one thing that's a narrative. Sometimes people think that guys that don't necessarily play the game don't have a real view of what it's like, or if they weren't successful, right? Like, you and I can talk football because we can look at it and see what's going on. We can learn things. We can learn route concepts. We can learn blocking schemes. And eventually I think that I would deploy myself to be able to, have that kind of informed opinion, to be able to look at film and say, okay, maybe this is something that we're seeing, right? But there are some things that are obvious, some things that are blatantly obvious. And just because you don't necessarily play or whatever doesn't mean that you don't have the opinion, and the opinion can be accurate. For example, one of the best offensive minds in the history of football was Mike Leach. Never played ball, right? But a lot of our offensive concepts, especially mess concepts, come from the Mike Leach offense, right? But anyway, I wanted to start playing a clip here from JT from the QB school, because some of the things that he highlights, not just the receiver play, but also the other things surrounding it. I mean, it's pretty obvious. But when you hear it from a source that knows ball, it sticks out, and it really makes you think, man, do we really have the kind of front office? Can we develop the kind of front office that can support a guy that, honestly, look, you'll hear him say it yourself. You can't keep taking hits like this. And no matter who you are. We saw with Cam. Cam, the shoulder injury. I mean, we were 6-2 going into that Pittsburgh game, and the shoulder injury just absolutely derailed Cam's career, right? But anyway, let's check it out here.
So when it ends up being these three, they have to sort that out. This is the NFL. It can't be just, hey, these three, hypothetically, are going to 1, 2, 3, and if this guy blitzes, we're just going to let him go free and crush the quarterback. That's not how the math works. It's combination man zone elements in damn near every pass protection. So watch the left guard sort it out perfectly. Sort it out. Now, that's not my favorite technique in the world. Watch the left tackle. Look out. I mean, no one's going to survive playing quarterback like this.
Nobody. And I tell you this, I said something in my last video, and I made a few comments. Very rarely do I, break the fourth wall with detailed comments, right? Obviously I like to be someone that's interactive. I can't always be because I'm busy, but I like to be interactive and, thank people for watching and things like that, because I do this, one, for my own therapy, to be honest, but number two, also because I know that there's people out there that enjoy, watching content from all different perspectives. We've got, and the one thing I love about Panthers YouTube specifically, and Twitter as well, is you literally have perspectives that run the gamut. You got people that are, really high, energy. You got people that, are always going to have their, potential pessimistic opinions. And then you got, me, who's always trying to see the optimistic view. But even I know that regardless of this guy's size, hey, you can't hold up in the NFL getting hit like this, right? But I will say this. It is interesting that a lot of the narratives, and this is me breaking the fourth wall because I did this with a comment, a lot of the narratives that existed about Bryce, the ones that, like I said, history will provide you opportunities to either, be able to say, okay, a guy can't do this or he can do this. And some guys just go outside of historical context. Like, you can't account for how God made a guy, right? You can't account for bone density. You can't account for, some guys play in the NFL, like I saw Larry Johnson, old school running back. Not old school, but old school to most of the Gen Z today, right? Kansas City running back. And I remember seeing an interview a few years back where he was talking about his battle with CTE. And I also saw an interview with Chris Carter, when he was on Mike and Mike some years ago, where he was talking about, the CTE conundrum, because on one hand, you're like, man, CTE is awful. You want to make sure that there's some kind of union set up for the players that, experience these kind of things and have that kind of help, because they provide us a lot of entertainment. But at the same time, it's like, man, the opportunities that the NFL provide are, paramount to what most of these guys would probably be doing if that opportunity was not available, if that makes sense. I remember how much tension there was during the lockout. Ray Lewis comes out like, hey, man, we need this. Like, you don't understand. Like, these dudes need to take this energy and channel it somewhere, right? And so I understand that battle. But you can't, some guys make long careers without ever having any kind of like neurological or even physiological problems. Other guys don't. We don't know. Bryce Young could be one of those guys. He could get hit like crazy, right? And be just fine from now until, God calls him home. So we just don't know. But I'll say this, at the same time, you can't take that risk. You cannot take that risk, right? And we are seeing here that Ike Ekwonu, I don't think that, like, I'm on that train of people that believe that Ike could be an all-world guard. The reason I believe that is because when we saw Ike in run protection last year down the stretch, I mean, one of the best in football. But pass protection is a little bit different. A lot more finesse and footwork. I believe the guy that was starting opposite him, that's now on injured reserve, is more of a solidified left tackle. I mean, the guy had the highest RAS score, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Fact correct me on that in the comments if you will. But the guy had the highest RAS score of any left tackle in the common draft era when he was drafted. In the 3rd round, mind you, right? And so that's got to account for something. He was an All-American left tackle at BYU. Like, that has to account for something. But in the words of Tommy Tremble, some of us may not have been, developed in the best way. So it's possible that if they allowed Brady to play left tackle his rookie and next season, follow-up season, we may not even have drafted Icky. I mean, if we're just being honest, because that position would have been filled. We'd have had it. And we've seen guys, shorter arm guys, be drafted before and have major success. Jason Peters is one of those that sticks out. He was an undrafted guy. He's a Hall of Famer, without question. Let's get back to it.
Again, watch the center go to the left. Okay, he's working to the 2-eye over the left guard. The left guard, left tackle have to work the two most dangerous next. You can see 76 does it. He sets inside and then fans out. The left tackle just loses his mind. I mean, this is how people get really, really hurt. That's full speed. That guy's running 100 miles an hour. Oh my God. Watch out. Next one here, 3rd and 8.
Crazy.
We're going to work the out to the slot to the bottom down here. The number 2. Now this is capital A drop. Damn, dog.
And that's what I'm talking about. Now, Jonathan Mingo had a bunch. As a matter of fact, Bryce's longest completion of his young career came on a Mingo route that JT later details in this video. And we won't get to that. If you want to see that entire video, which I'm sure you have. If you're a Panther fan, you've watched this. But I'll link it in the description so you can see it for yourself anyway. But that's the kind of stuff that I think really more timing is going to help, especially between Mingo, because Bryce gets the ball out super fast. Anticipation throws. I mean, it's like, I don't think some of us realize how difficult that really is, because before you're out of a break, you got to turn around, face mask, gear, sweat in your visor, all that kind of stuff, and see that ball coming. But it's still no excuse, because this is the NFL, right? And if that's not something that can be done consistently, then you got to figure out another way. And I do think that Mingo is going to get this. But it just makes you imagine, like, man, when you get guys that can really, truly separate, I mean, super fast, kind of twitchy guys, it makes me even wonder how someone like a Shi Smith would have fared. I know Shi had trouble with drops, but we've seen some good Shi too, in camp and sometime in games. It does make me wonder how a guy like him would have fared, in this situation if given the opportunity.
Help us out. Y'all, this is crazy anticipation.
Crazy.
To me, it's certainly a good enough throw. And again, I'll pause this thing right at the top. Where do you want him to go with the ball?
That's the theme. We'll get back to it in a second. Where do you want him to go? I think every person that has been deemed a Bryce Young apologist or anything you want to say like that, like, we've seen progression. Like, obviously, here's one thing, for example. You saw Bryce throw 2 picks the same way in the Atlanta game, first game out, right? You haven't seen that since. Has he thrown interceptions? Yes, 100%. But have they been to baiting safeties? Has he been afraid to work the middle of the field? No. So he's grown from it. But the thing that the Bryce supporter, This would be for anybody. This would be for whoever they drafted. This was for me with Baker sometimes, last year. Because let's keep this in mind, guys. So Bryce Young is on par. And this is insane when you think about it. Bryce Young is on par to throw for more touchdowns in less than a single season. So he's only played 6 games so far. And he's already 3 touchdowns away from any touchdown total. Now, other yards, things like that, we can, debate. But I want you to just think about this. Bryce Young is on pace to throw for more touchdowns than any Carolina Panthers quarterback since Cam Newton in 2017, maybe 2018 when he got hurt. That's insane. When you think about the numbers and the names, I mean, Teddy Bridgewater, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, all these different names. Like, it's not like these guys are lighting the world on fire. But we had 4 guys actually total go 1,000 yards from scrimmage or close to it. I think Mike Davis was somewhere in the 800s. Curtis Samuel went, I think, over 1,000 total, not just receiving yards. Fact correct me on this in the comments. But I know Robbie and DJ for sure. And Teddy still only threw 9 touchdowns or something crazy like that. So Bryce Young has already almost met that total. So he's dealing with the same weapons that even the guy that we champion as the best quarterback in our franchise's history was dealing with too. And he had DJ. He had McCaffrey for a moment when he came back that season. And it still didn't necessarily culminate into success. He's dealing with worse, right? That you can't deny that.
He's separating the throw right there. He's throwing it to the number 2. The guy's right here. He's going to come up and run out. This thing is almost always paired with a must outside release go, and then like a little hook, hitch, kind of search route by the number 3. And you read this thing outside in usually. But I mean, you can't throw it earlier. The font is not big enough for the capital A. I mean, it is outstanding anticipation. And then look at the throw. I mean, maybe he's getting grabbed at the top. I'm not trying to hear that. Catch the ball.
Maybe he's getting grabbed at the top. It's very possible. Very possible. But the point is like you said, not really trying to hear that. It's the NFL, And far be it from me, couch potato guy that, or armchair quarterback or whatever you want to call it, watching and giving my opinion. But it's the reason why I lean on guys like this to be able to provide context for me. And like I said, I think sometimes we view, like when I hear the narrative about Bryce's size over and over again, oh, he's too small. He doesn't have a strong enough arm, all this kind of stuff. On one hand, I can agree because I see it just like you see it. And sometimes it is scary when you see guys come off the edge, free release, and smoke him, right? But at the same time, sometimes I feel like people are waiting for a Cam Newton-like character to walk through that door. And as I detailed in a comment when I reminded one of the people that, kind of said what they said in the comments from the last video, hey, look, the Cam Newton prototype, he's out for the season. The guy that's the prototypical height and size, he had 4 batted passes, 2 major. I mean, you talking about one pass to the wide receiver that completely separated away from C.J. Henderson that would have broke the game open, right? And the result may have been different, right? And that was overthrown. So the things that we have as far as evidence to support that Bryce cannot play in the NFL, please get that. Because that's what I said. I did not say that there was evidence that we couldn't be critical of Bryce. What I said was we don't have any evidence to suggest based on his college tape and what we've seen so far as durability, arm strength, anticipation, that he can't succeed in the NFL. But what you don't want is a front office that treats him like they did with Cam. There's that audio out there. I don't have it queued right now, of David Tepper saying before the draft.
The way he throws the ball, the way he's a point guard, how you can use the different players in the field, how you might not have to have as many elite receivers because he's a point guard, right? So he distributes the ball to people with routes. So you can save some money there. We believe we can save money other places because of him and put that money into the defensive side of the ball.
No. You go back and look at every Super Bowl winning quarterback or multiple Super Bowl winning quarterback. I mean, you can run the gamut, whether it's Terry Bradshaw with Stallworth and, Franco Harris and, all those guys that they had on that offense. Aikman with Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin, Jay Novacek, and others, right? Even Jim Kelly, going to 4 straight Super Bowls with Thurman Thomas and Andre Reed. Or you go more recent with Pat and Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. You look at what the Miami Dolphins are doing. You look at what the Cincinnati Bengals are doing. You look at what the Chargers are doing when they have a healthy Mike Williams, right? And they still go and draft Quentin Johnston in the first round. You have to add pieces. The thing that makes me so encouraged about this is that when you see how this kid plays ball despite what's there, man, you can only just imagine what it'll be like if they even get if guys develop, if guys suppose Tommy Tremble, just turns a corner and just develops into this, a really solid tight end, or Jonathan Mingo, and then they go out and grab someone either in free agency or both in the draft as well. I mean, I know that we don't have the highest draft pick this year, and we didn't do anything to, change that either. So that's, something else that is concerning, excuse me. But I think they put the shackles on Scott Fitter because when you look at a lot of these trades that have happened, man, whether it's C.J. Henderson or, Hassan Reddick leaving, Gilly leaving, you start questioning man, should we really give you reins and control over things? Because a lot of these draft picks have been terrible, and these trades have not really worked out in our favor. So, but anyway, let me know what you guys think below. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It's always great talking to you guys. This is John from the One Carolina Show. Keep pounding.